When you try your best but you don't succeed. When you get what you want but not what you need. When you feel so tired but you can't sleep. Stuck in rivers. And the tears come streaming down your face. When you lose something you can't replace. When you love someone but it goes to waste. Could it be worse? Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. And high up above or down below. When you're too in love to let it go. But if you never try, you'll never know just what you were. Lights will guide you home. What an amazing audience. Thank you so much. Thanks for sitting in the back up there, everybody. And thanks for giving us that amazing performance to you too. Goodbye and good night.
Good morning, Victory Heights. Thank you for joining us. This is a special assembly. We don't normally have assembly on Wednesday morning, but it is a very important assembly. We are talking to you today about ESafety. I will be joined by my good friend Mr. Lavelle, who will be with us shortly. If you, during the course of this assembly, there are any questions that you want to ask, then ask your teacher to put it into the chat box, which should be down below, and then we will attempt to answer them at the end of the assembly. So it is very interactive in that sense. So without further ado, let's welcome him, Mr. Lavelle. Mr. Lavelle, are you there?
I am indeed, Mr. Rothwell. Thank you very much. Hello, boys and girls. Hope you are okay. As Mr. Rothwell said, we just really wanted to go through ESafety very, very quickly. It's a really important subject. There's such a minefield as well. There's so much to consider, so much to think about. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen with you, if that's okay, rather than just looking at my ugly mug for all the assembly. I thought I would put some slides on as well. Okay, so ESafety, like I said, it's a really, really big topic. And if I'm completely honest with you, I'm not sure anyone really knows how to sum it up in terms of trying to keep everyone safe, because what I'm about to say to you now, in 2-3 weeks' time, in a couple of months' time, may look completely different because there'll be new platforms available, new games. But I think some things do remain constant, and hopefully I'm going to take you through those things just so I can keep you and your families safe. Because it's not just about keeping you safe, it's about keeping your family safe and content and happy as well. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about 3 things in particular. Now, I know we've got some year 3s and year 4s who not all of this may apply to, but as you get older, I think it's something to consider and think about as well. So the 3 things I'm going to be talking about are online gaming, cyberbullying, and social media. So just have a little look at some of these images here. I'm sure you probably know all of them. We've got Among Us, Minecraft, Roblox, and Fortnite, and they are so good to play. Now, you may or may not play these games. You may play games on your Xbox or your PlayStation. Again, all of these things they come with really brilliant things that happen as part of them. You're playing them and they're really, really fun to play. But there's also some things that you've just got to consider and be careful of as well. And the most obvious one, I think, and myself and Mr. Rothwell have spoken about, is the chat function, especially online gaming. Now, I'm sure that you have your friends that you talk to, and I'm sure that you understand about your settings and how to set them to private to make sure that not just anyone can get in touch with you. But again, because these things always evolve and always change, it's not always easy to make sure that you are on the strictest security levels. So what I would say is that if anybody, and I mean anybody, contacts you, whether or not you think you know them or you think they've got a good name or a good username or anything like that, if it doesn't feel right in your tummy, then you need to communicate this with someone. You need to tell someone, okay? I often teach ESafety to years 1 and 2, and if I'm doing that, I wouldn't necessarily talk to them like I'm talking to you boys and girls, but I do say that if you get that feeling in your tummy, it feels like butterflies flapping and it doesn't quite feel right, it feels like the earth is a little bit moving, then you need to tell someone. And the best people to tell are trusted adults, okay? You can tell your teachers, your parents, aunties, uncles. It is good if you want to tell a friend as well, someone in your class or someone your own age. The only thing with that is that obviously they may not be able to support you as well as what adults can. Okay. Now, the other thing I'd also say about this and online gaming is also about setting your own limits. Okay. I've had a few people come to me and saying, I can't get my son or daughter off their device and they're playing games all the time. Okay. So you are getting older now and you are able to sort of think for yourself more and be more independent. So it might be an idea about setting your own limits for games, okay? There's nothing wrong. Again, I'm not preaching and saying that all online gaming is bad, because it is not. I do some myself. However, it is a good thing about understanding getting balance in your life and understanding that actually there are other things as well, okay? So the next thing I want to talk about is cyberbullying, okay? Just have a little think for a minute and just your understanding of what cyberbullying is or what cyberbullying means to you. Okay, there's some images on the screen. Okay, so if we break down this, cyber means online or digital, and bullying means a sustained period of someone not being nice to you. Okay, now That's not to say that sometimes one of your friends or someone you know may not be nice the one time. And that is an unfortunate thing, but they might say sorry later in the afternoon or in the evening. They might send you a message or give you a phone call, say, oh, I'm really sorry. I was a bit of a doofus today. Apologies. Okay. But bullying comes in the form of a sustained period. Okay. Now, cyberbullying in particular is about sending messages to you or the sharing of images, possibly of you, without your permission. Okay. Now, cyberbullying is a really difficult one to manage. And I know that in my teaching career, and I'm sure Mr. Rothwell will agree, that I've seen some incidents of cyberbullying that are very, very difficult to manage because, as you probably know, it will start very small, but can end up with lots of people finding or sharing these images or messages about yourself. And it can be really, really horrible because you feel that there's no way of actually clawing the situation back. So again, what do you do if you find yourself a victim of cyberbullying? Okay, well, one of the most instinctive things, you just want to delete everything, or you want to get rid of the messages or the photos or the things that people are sending about you. But actually, that's probably not the right thing to do. If you save the evidence, if you save the messages and the emails or anything that you found, even if it's not about you, if you know it's about other people, if you save that evidence, it's easier for trusted adults to be able to speak to the people who are doing it. Okay, so that's the one thing I would say as well. All right. So the last thing I want to talk about today, and I know it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, and I do apologise, but again, there are opportunities for you to ask questions, and hopefully we'll be able to answer them afterwards, is about social media. Now, as you all know, social media is all these different platforms. So you've got Facebook, again, you've got emails possibly. WhatsApp does count as social media as well. You're socially interacting with friends, with relatives, people digitally. So again, that's classed as social media. Instagram, and obviously most recently TikTok, and Year 6 know all about that because we've been producing some TikTok videos, okay? And we've been actually discussing the idea of what message we want to be able to share with people, okay? And I do feel that social media sometimes gets a bit of a bad rap, but actually there's loads of really brilliant stuff going on with social media. If you don't know who the young girl is there, her name's Greta Thunberg, and she is doing so much amazing work when it comes to the environment, and people are really getting on board with this as well. And also I've seen a lot of things to do with the protection of animals, particularly with animal cruelty, which again, we may not have had that platform before, like 10, 15 years ago, but you guys have got a real good platform to stand up and speak your mind about things, okay? Now, obviously, the downside of social media is that you may come across things and see things that you don't really like or that maybe aren't age appropriate. And again, you probably recognize the image I've got there is from a Korean TV program called Squid Games. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, okay? But also there are some things like challenges and dares and tasks that people often ask you to do. And again, a lot of this does come from TikTok. By if you don't share certain messages, then this will happen to you, or your teddy bear will explode, or something along those lines, okay? Now, again, with all these things, and like I said, you're going to be exposed to things that you may not understand, or you may see that you don't like, or whatever. I think, again, it always comes down to a couple of different things. Save the evidence, okay? And go and tell a trusted adult. If you see something or if you come across material that, again, gives you those butterflies or just makes your tummy not feel quite right, save it. Show a trusted adult, because it's fine if you switch something off, but then the trusted adult you're trying to tell is probably in a better position to see it and deal with it rather than you just telling them but not quite understanding. Because again, a lot of the time, your mums and dads may not have come across these videos or these files or viral videos before, so they would be better placed to see these things and then deal with them rather than you sort of deleting them or whatever and then telling them, okay? And also, again, it might just be an opportunity that if you do have a social media account, which I'd just like to remind you, you're not supposed to have until you're 13, but I'm well aware that some do, that you should really, really check your privacy and your security settings so that you're not as easily reached by strangers and people that you don't know, and that it's really just you and your friends and your family that can access your account, okay? Now, coupled with that, and there's been an absolute huge surge in the different types of streaming platforms that are now available to you guys. Again, this comes down to not just your family support, but also the choices that you make. If you're watching things that you know are not appropriate, and I go back to, for example, Squid Games, where I've heard children have conversations about this program, there's a reason that there's an age rating. And it's not because adults are boring. Well, sometimes they are. But to be honest with you, it's about you accessing material that is not age appropriate. And I'm not really even, I mean, I am, I suppose, but it's not just to do with things like the violence and things like that. But there's also a lot of other political messages and things like that, that again, that will go over your head. And it's about having an age limit on there because it's appropriate for you and your levels of understanding. Okay. I remember when I was young, I used to watch all kinds of things. So I do feel a bit of a hypocrite like this, but I remember watching one thing in particular. It was a really, really scary movie, and I did not sleep for quite a long time because of the imagery that I saw. And I would never, ever, ever want anyone to go through that again, particularly because I was about your age in year 4, 5, and 6 when I was watching these things. Okay. So now as a dad, I'm kind of on the other side of that. And I'm thinking, I just want my child, my daughter, and you guys to be experiencing things that are age appropriate because you're children. Okay. You've got loads of time when you're older to catch up with loads and loads of different adult programs and content and material. Okay. And again, if it doesn't feel right in your tummy, tell an adult, okay, a trusted adult. Now, there may be a possibility that the trusted adult might be saying, "What? You saw what? Oh my goodness me," okay? It's just because they're worried. They're not angry because you've done something really, really, really bad. They're just worried about you and they love you and they just want to make sure that you are safe, okay? Safe in the real world, safe in the digital world, okay? So all of those things just boil down to them understanding, your trusted adults making sure that you're safe, but also you making good decisions, okay? It works both ways. It really does, boys and girls, okay? You know if you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, okay? If you get into trouble, please, please, please tell a trusted adult, okay? Right, I think that's enough talking from me. I'd like to say thank you for listening, and I'm hoping now that we'll be able to answer some of your questions.
No, thank you, Mr. Lavelle. You are very insightful. You are a very wise man. It was great to listen to you. I was just thinking, when all of what you were saying, I was thinking that we often think there's a disconnect between like a virtual world and the world that we sort of inhabit physically, but it's about replicating the behaviors that we would do physically. So if we were in the playground and someone was just walking by and said, "I want to come and play with you," you would feel a bit uneasy about like letting them through the school gate and letting do that without knowing anything about them, especially if you could imagine that they were completely blanked out. You couldn't really make out who they were, where they're from, or anything like that. You wouldn't do that. Yet seemingly in the virtual world, we're happily to invite people to into our sort of games and our conversations without knowing anything about them. So I think we do need to try and remember the behaviors that we have. And similarly, if you're being cyberbullied, if you're being bullied in a playground, someone saying nasty things to you, you'd walk away from them. Yet in cyberbullying, I guess it's more difficult because the messages are coming to you constantly. No, but you can block them, which is the equivalent of walking away. So it's about replicating those behaviors. I haven't actually had any comments come through, Mr. Lavelle, unfortunately, but I'm sure I've seen that there's plenty of people been watching this. I'm sure that means that your explanations have been very thorough and that children haven't got any immediate questions to answer. What I would say, children, is if you do have anything that you think of during the rest of the day or indeed after today, then either Mr. Lavelle or myself or your class teacher will be able to answer those questions for you. Please don't think that you'll be silly for answering a question. Please don't think we haven't got enough time for you to spend to answer your questions. We're always happy to take some time out to try and make sure that you guys are safe online and happy online.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to mirror what you're saying about what you would do in the real world and digital world. There should be no difference. And as you said, Mr. Rothwell, some people on both sides of the coin, you know, the people who are the perpetrators, the ones that are being mean, maybe not doing that in the real world, and they're very nice, but then they get behind a keyboard and suddenly things go a little bit different for them, and they send some mean things out when they wouldn't do, as you say, in the real world. And again, there should be absolutely no difference from the way that you act in on both online and offline.
That is a good point, actually. It's far easier when you're, I think the term is keyboard warriors, when you're sort of stuck behind the keyboard, sort of everything else about you doesn't really matter, and you can be as anyone that you want to be, and that can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. Whereas often people wouldn't say nasty things to people in person, perhaps because they think, well, I'm a lot smaller than them and they're a lot bigger. It doesn't really matter if you're behind a keyboard, because it levels the playing field, but that can lead to like really nasty outcomes.
Agreed.
So thank you ever so much again, Mr. Lavelle, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate your time. I'm sure the children at school and parents as well watching at home will appreciate it as well. So it's goodbye from me, Mr. Lavelle, and I'm sure it's goodbye from you.
Take care, guys. See you around.
Bye.